I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, December 15th, right in the middle of the month of December. Still a quiet weather pattern here in the eastern part of the nation. A chilly morning here in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. It remains moderately chilly for the rest of today, turns milder tomorrow, and then a cold front will change the overall weather pattern during the upcoming weekend. We will cool down by the time we get to Sunday here in the northeastern part of the country, and it looks like the overall weather pattern will become colder next week. A lot of activity going on right now in the past few days out in the western part of the nation with California getting pounded. That same storm system will rock the central part of the nation today, and we'll kind of focus in on that over the next several minutes. First of all, a programming note. CTFV Weather will transition to Arcfield Weather. Probably as early as later today, if not today, later this week. Again, there will be a transition from CTFV Weather to Arcfield Weather, hopefully all transparent to the visitors to this YouTube channel. But again, we will become Arcfield Weather later on today, or certainly later on this week. Well, let's start off the weather discussion with a look at NOAA's weather warnings map across the nation, and a very, very extended area with high wind warnings. And this system that is pulling out of California now into the interior west will cut across the central plains basically in a fashion like this over the next 24 hours or so, and all of this area is in high wind warning, and there is potential for 60, even 70 mile per hour winds in any part of this region over the next 12 to 24 hours or so, associated with this very strong storm system. This is the same storm that has pounded California over the last few days with significant rainfall across coastal sections, lower elevation sections, and substantial snowfall on the order of several feet in some of the higher elevations, such as Sierra Nevada. Snowpack this time of the year is crucial to the state of California in the Sierra mountain range, because it ultimately leads to the water supply during the summer season. When that snow melts, it does help with the water supply in the state of California. But again, a major impact storm today across the central part of the nation, and this will also include some significant snowfall, let's say from Nebraska up across the Dakotas and Minnesota, maybe even upper Wisconsin on the cold side of this particular storm system, and we'll take a look at the model in a moment. Well, before we take a look at last night's 0Z run of the GFS and focus in on that Central Plains storm system today, I wanted to take a look at what's happening in the upper part of the atmosphere, the stratosphere. We've talked the last few days about some teleconnection indices such as the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, NAO, the Arctic Oscillation, AO, all kind of showing some signals of a colder weather pattern across the northern U.S. as we get later into the month of December and perhaps going into January as well. One other area of interest during this time of the year is the stratosphere, especially over the North Pole region. We have what's called stratospheric warming events, where warmer air can suddenly develop over the polar region, and that helps to kind of kick the typical polar vortex sitting over the pole somewhere, either to the one side of the pole or to the other side of the pole. Sometimes the displacement ends up with the breaking apart of the polar vortex, and all that typically eventually leads to displacement of cold air from the poles, from the high latitudes into the middle latitudes. So it's something we certainly try to monitor during the winter season, especially the early part of the winter season, a stratospheric warming event. And here is the latest look at the temperature pattern at 10 millibars. This is way up at the top of the atmosphere, what we call the stratosphere, kind of a top-down view. Here's the North Pole right here. The U.S., hard to see on this map, but is right in this region right here. And on the other side of the pole, you have Asia over here. Right now, a pretty typical polar vortex sitting near or over the pole with cold temperatures in the upper part of the atmosphere. But take a look at what happens, and this is a forecast map from the GFS, but take a look at what happens 10 days from now. Here we go. This is an indication of a stratospheric warming event. What we're looking at are temperatures here, and these are higher temperatures, still very cold, but relative to what we see near the polar vortex, quite a bit of warming here developing over the next 5 or 10 days or so near the North Pole. And notice the displacement. The polar vortex sitting over in this region right now, and 10 days from now it's kind of pushed onto the other side of the pole again, with warming starting to take place, starting to show up at 10 millibars way at the top of the atmosphere. And again, that could ultimately lead to some cold air masses from being displaced from the polar region into the middle latitudes. Now, whether they end up going into the central and eastern U.S. or the western U.S., that's still unclear, but certainly this is something to monitor over the next several days, especially when combined with a lot of those teleconnection indices that we've talked about the last few videos, showing some signs, some signals for some colder air to drop into the middle latitudes over the next few weeks. Well, let's walk through the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from last night's 0Z run of the GFS. Again, a few areas of interest that we'll focus in on here. First of all, strong high pressure ridging centered right now over the Great Lakes. This deep upper level low is associated with that California system from a couple days ago and is now kicking on out into the southwestern states, and it will continue to move in this fashion. And that's why the central part of the nation is under the gun today for some very strong winds, even some accumulating snow on the cold side of the storm. And we'll move forward here over the next several days and watch what happens as we evolve over the next week to 10 days or so. And also notice here, no blocking right now over Greenland. If there were blocking, you would see higher heights than normal. That does develop, though, in the next week to 10 days or so. Let's keep moving forward here. The California system cuts across the Central Plains into Canada, has little or no effect on the eastern seaboard over the next 48 hours or so. And then we keep moving forward here. Notice here what's going on by the time we get to Sunday morning over Greenland. A lot of higher heights than normal. Quite a change from what we're experiencing right now Wednesday morning. Also a strong ridge starting to show up here over Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, and again the strong ridge that is currently located over the Great Lakes certainly weakens over the next several days. Let's go a little bit farther in time, all the way to next week. This is now Christmas week. Look at this blocking pattern setting up over not only Alaska but over Greenland as well. About a week from now, and then by the time we get into around Christmas Day or shortly thereafter, right here we start to see an upper level low right near the mid-Atlantic coastline on Christmas Day. This is more than a week away now, with some blocking over Greenland and very impressive blocking over the Aleutian Islands. So this is certainly a shake-up to the pattern, if nothing else. And again, right now we have a kind of a quiet and mild weather pattern in the eastern states. But with a shake-up in the pattern coming, it looks like things will certainly be changing, especially in the eastern part of the country going forward, going through the remainder of the month of December. Well, let's walk through the surface forecast maps from the GFS. All this snow out here in the Rocky Mountain states from Montana all the way down to Arizona and New Mexico associated with that California storm has now moved inland after pounding California. And again, look at this isobar pattern already setting up here across the middle part of the nation. We move forward later on and we will have intensifying low pressure by this evening, a very strong low. Cold air accumulating snow on its cold side, the northwest side, extending across the Dakotas into Nebraska, and just a very tight isobar pattern here. These black lines represent lines of equal pressure known as isobars. The tighter those lines, the stronger the winds. Generally, the wind flows parallel to these lines, counterclockwise around a low, so that would put a broad southwesterly flow, fetch of air right in this region right here. And with this tight pressure gradient pattern, 50, 60, maybe even 70 mile per hour winds today and tonight in the heartland, the middle part of the nation, really extending from the southwestern states all the way up to the northern plains, upper Midwest. Expect power outages associated with this. And this storm continues to intensify, and that is one of the main reasons why we're really worried about damaging wind gusts. Very, very strong winds associated with this system. And look at this intense snow on its western side. With those kind of winds, that is truly blizzard-like conditions in terms of the winds and the snow. Right here you could have heavy snow falling in Minnesota with just tremendous wind on the backside of that low out of the north and northwest. Just blizzard-like conditions in Minnesota later on tonight. And that continues to move up to the north and east, has little impact in the eastern states. Now, when we get into the day on Thursday, the southwesterly flow in the low levels in the eastern U.S. will boost temperatures probably to the warmest levels of the week on Thursday afternoon. A place like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, 60+ degrees possible for afternoon highs. And then we look ahead to the upcoming weekend, and things start to change over the weekend. Notice here some rain on Saturday, generally a warm frontal system causing this shower activity. Here's a low pressure right in this region come Saturday midday or so. This is kind of a warm front extending this way, moving off to the north, and then a cold front extending on the southwest side, the trailing cold front with this low pressure area. And let's move forward now. That warm front pushes off to the north. There can be some snow this weekend over interior New England, for example. Then the cold front comes through by the time we get to Sunday morning. Here's a low off the coast. The cold front at this time off the coast, and this is really kind of a pattern changer. The colder air starts to push in, and definitely a difference in temperatures on Sunday as compared to Saturday. A chilly day on Saturday, but even colder on Sunday. And again, once this cold air gets established by the early part of next week, it looks like the overall pattern will keep it colder through next week and going into the following week. Not necessarily Arctic type cold, severe cold or anything like that, but certainly a colder look to the overall pattern up across the northern U.S. beginning later this weekend and extending through next week. And we'll see if we get any kind of a snow threat in the northeastern part of the country later next week. But the big news today weather-wise will be across the middle part of the nation, where powerful wind gusts of up to 60 or 70 miles per hour possible, really all the way from the southwestern states to the northern plains, upper part of the Midwest, and there can be blizzard-like conditions on the cold side, the northwest side of that low, extending from Nebraska up across the Dakotas into Minnesota later on today and tonight. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dory, and don't forget the transition from CTFV Weather to Arcfield Weather later on today, or certainly by later on this week. That's it for now.